This is episode number 252 of the Inner Fight Podcast. Let's kick off with a massive shout out to our show sponsor, Smith Street Paleo. Remember, if you go to iTunes, give the show a rating and leave your comments over there, you will win a massive sample bag of Smith Street Paleo goodies. It's well worth doing. Go and check out all their recipes, smithstreetpaleo.com, and thank you to those guys for their support. Dre, here we go. Second podcast for you.
Super excited.
Super excited. Did you get any good feedback from your first podcast with Boz?
Haven't really heard any yet. Hopefully some will come.
You'll definitely have some more Instagram followers. This topic though, mate, we're going to talk to Andy Savage about climbing Kilimanjaro. Your initial thoughts on climbing mountains?
Very interested. My dad, my brother used to climb mountains, so pretty stoked to hear about this mountain.
Hear what's going on. Would you do one, you reckon?
My brother and my dad, they did Mont Blanc in France.
Yeah,
4,800.
Decent,
a little
height,
more technical,
cold.
Very cool.
Yeah. We'll see what this is. This one's all about. Obviously,
definitely a different deal.
Kilimanjaro, different continent.
Yeah.
Let's go and have a chat with Savage. Cool. Here he is, probably one of the biggest supporters of the Inner Fight Podcast, Mr. Andrew Savage.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Welcome
Man
to
himself.
the show.
Morning.
This is it, Dre. You've not been here so long, but this guy, if there's a podcast, he asks a question.
Lovely.
He asks all the questions. So luckily we've got him here today, and mate, not to ask questions, not to answer questions, but to speak about what you got up to over summer, which was not a Club 1830 in Mallorca or Ibiza. Tell us a little bit give us an introduction to what you did this summer, mate.
Okay, so this summer we got a call. My wife and I got a call from her cousin actually, and she was going on a 6-month tour around the world, and she was starting off in Tanzania, and she was planning to do Kilimanjaro.
Right.
So of course she had to go via Dubai. So she asked us, do you fancy coming along?
Yeah.
We're like, yeah, we definitely fancy that.
As you do.
We wanted to get involved in that. So that's how it started, basically. I mean, there wasn't really a lot of thought that went into it.
Yeah.
It was just kind of a brief conversation. Do you fancy doing Kilimanjaro? Didn't really know a lot about it, and that was the way it panned out.
What did you know about Kilimanjaro before you said, yes we'll come with you?
The only thing I knew was it was relatively high, but that you could climb it without any technical abilities.
Right.
That was the only thing that I knew.
And had you done any sort of climbing before, or?
Yeah, but no, I mean, in terms of altitude, about 12 years ago, my wife and I were in Nepal, and we did the Annapurna circuit there, which is just under 5,000 meters, I think, 4,800.
So 12 years, no climbing, no nothing.
Nothing. I mean, we did a little bit of... we were in Indonesia as well, and we went up a volcano, but nothing like this. I mean, nothing for like 5-6 days. It was just like we'd go on like a day trek or something. We went to Sri Lanka and did a 5-day cycle ride, but nothing like that on the trekking side.
Cool.
This, it was something that was a little bit out of the blue that we just thought, we'll
this is you, your wife,
and her cousin. So there were 3 of us. So
Okay.
me and the 2 girls.
And how much preparation did you have? Like from she asked you said yes?
Like 2 months.
2 months.
Yeah.
What did you? So talk to us about what you did in those 2 months, mate, to sort of, I don't know, get ready for it or learn. I guess first off, you learn about it, right?
I had a little bit of a read about how it was possible, what you needed to do, because obviously we needed to actually arrange it. It was literally just a conversation that was, let's go and climb Kilimanjaro. So obviously we needed to book it, we needed to sort the guides, the porters and everything. My initial thought, because my wife and I did the Annapurna circuit, just completely alone, we didn't take any porters, we didn't take any guides, so I thought, Kilimanjaro, let's save a bit of cash. I'm a Yorkshireman, I wanted to save a bit of money. I said, let's do it ourselves. We'll carry our own equipment, and not realizing the gravity of the situation. So we then realized that it's not actually possible to climb it without any porters and without guides. You need to be in an organized group. So the next thing we did is we contacted our friend Sam, she's a travel agent, and she gave us the options for the different routes and everything. Yeah. We had a little read about what was available, and
so you actually did prepare a little bit.
A little bit of preparation. Okay, a little bit of reading on the types of routes and stuff, but not too much. I mean, she came back and we were like, yeah, okay, it looks good, let's do it.
When you started reading about it, mate, and understanding, like you said at the start, you knew it was quite a big mountain. You know when you first heard about it, but when you start you'd already committed to it. Now you start researching into it.
Yeah.
What are you starting to think? What have I done here?
No, I got quite excited actually. Yeah, I liked it. I mean, it looked like, because I only knew one person who knew someone who'd done it, and they said he was really unfit, and he managed to crack it no problem. So I was like, okay, that's fine. I mean, I didn't do any preparation other than coming here, and it was just the normal. I did nothing different at all, other than actually nothing. I was just here the same as normal. And my only point of reference was this one guy who was apparently relatively unfit, and he managed to climb it.
Right.
But he was the only one out of his group that made it, because the rest had to turn back because of altitude sickness.
Right.
So I knew that I didn't think fitness would be a problem for any of us. In fact, I knew it wouldn't be. But I knew that altitude sickness may be a problem. Now, my only time at high altitude, or at such a high altitude, was Annapurna in Nepal, and I got altitude sickness there.
Oh, wow.
So I felt it before. So, I mean, I wasn't bad, but I knew what the symptoms felt like.
Talk us through those symptoms a little bit, mate, because I think, I personally, I don't know about you, Andre, but I've never had altitude sickness, so I've no idea what it's like. And I think, from what I've heard on a lot of these things, when you first get altitude sickness, that the sort of shock of it, or what's happening to your body because it's something that you're experiencing for the first time, really not freaks you out, but you don't know how to deal with it. So what was it like? It
definitely takes you by surprise. So I mean, I'll talk about Nepal first, because that's where the first reference came from. I mean, we were hiking over a peak basically, which is just under 5,000 meters, and as we got to the top of this peak, you very quickly started feeling like a stabbing pain in the stomach, like almost like like you really wanted to throw up. Headache. I mean, the headaches were really bad. I never get headaches like on a day-to-day basis. So for me, it was quite a shock.
Right.
And both in Annapurna and also in Kilimanjaro, it felt like someone was putting your head in a vice and just squeezing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really, really kind of really like tight, like there was a lot of pressure on your head.
Right.
And obviously, acute mountain sickness is to do with the lack of oxygen in your blood, and when people get into real problems from that, it's to do with like swelling in the brain, lack of oxygen, and obviously your body's been starved of the oxygen, and that's what takes the pressure on your head.
And that's a very normal problem when going on high altitudes.
Yeah,
so what do they tell you to how to prevent it? I know by going slower up the mountain or the trek or whatever it is.
Exactly. So
that helps.
Yeah, the key is to climb slowly and to try and acclimatize. But there's various things that you can do. They try and help you with water. I mean, I was drinking in Kilimanjaro. I was drinking about 7-8 liters of water a day. So I was putting a lot of water away.
That's quite a lot.
They were giving us food like hot breakfast, hot lunch, hot dinner, and you just do not want to eat at that level. I mean, when you're at altitude, you completely
super
lose.
Thirsty, but not hungry at all.
Not in the slightest bit hungry, and that's one of the symptoms of altitude sickness, is that you completely lose your appetite.
Wow.
But you just want to, and I was conscious as well that. Drinking water would alleviate symptoms of altitude sickness, so I was consciously drinking more and more water.
Yeah.
The only other thing that we did is we took Diamox, which is a specific medicine for altitude sickness, which apparently increases the acidity in your blood, which basically fools your body into thinking that there's more oxygen in your blood.
Wow. And you take that pretty much from the start?
You take that the day before you start the ascent, start the climb.
Talk us through then, mate. How does it? Because I mean, Dre, you've got some interesting stats on Kilimanjaro, what it is and what sort of the height is and stuff. Because I think this really creates a bit of perspective on the mountain, actually.
Yeah. So I mean, Kilimanjaro is the 4th highest mountain in the world. It's one of the 7 summits that you can climb. It's Africa's highest mountain in the northern part of Tanzania. It's basically built up by 3 volcanoes, and it's one of the only mountains in the world that's not like the Alps are, with like surrounded by other mountains.
Yeah, in a range. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean because that's very evident when you're climbing it. Actually, it's the world's highest freestanding mountain.
Yeah,
right.
And
exactly.
When you say about the volcanoes, when you're literally climbing into the crater of the volcano when you get to the top. So it's pretty impressive.
Cool.
I mean, if you see a photograph from above, it looks amazing. I mean, you'd lose the perspective a bit when you're inside it, but it's quite evident that you're walking into a crater.
And it's just below 6,000 meters, so just below 20,000 feet.
Yes.
So a very, very decent height.
Yes.
Another fun fact about that is that a lot of the stats I've read is that most people do this trek in 46 days, which compared to many of the other mountains is a short amount of time, which makes it a little more risky and a little more dangerous with the altitude sickness, for example, because your body simply can't adapt in those short days.
Exactly. They recommend actually, there's a couple of routes, or the most popular routes are like 7 or 8 days. The one that we did was kind of 5 or 6 days, and the advantage with the route that we took is that you climb to a higher elevation and then you sleep at a lower elevation on one of the days, which really helps. So you walk up to I think it's 4,600 meters during the day.
Do you want to talk us through from, I think that'd be quite interesting, mate, from like day one, just give us and then we'll chip in and abuse you as we see fit.
So I mean, the overall trek itself is not actually long. It's only, you're going to be a bit disappointed when I tell you this. It's only 62 kilometers, like as a round trip. But I mean, you know, when you're talking about walking at such high gradients,
what's the steepest gradient on it? Then
I have no idea in terms of technical, but I mean, you're literally walking, you know, at a real snail's pace for a lot of it. On the ascent night, particularly, you know, it's super steep.
Slow.
How much are you carrying? How much is your backpack and so on?
Okay, so because you have to take porters. So we were surprised.
You chose to take porters.
We were forced to take porters. We were surprised actually. Within our group, there were we had to have a team of 13 people support the three of us. That's three porters per person.
That's like a limb. That's like one limb each and one left over, basically.
It's a lot. And so they advise you to just carry a day pack with your water and like a couple of layers in it. But I chose to carry my own pack, so I had a 16 kg pack with water.
Oh, that's
so I carried that every day until the final ascent, which is where you just go with bare minimum, basically. Yeah. So my porter got off pretty lightly. Wasn't carrying anything.
I hope you didn't give him a very big tip. So, mate, we'll skip the 2 or 3 days just relaxing, drinking beer and having a nice time in Zanzibar before you got there. That was your the final preparation. He's on the beach having a few beers and stuff. Talk us through the sort of the 5 or 6 days up to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, so day one was a bit of a shock actually. We were expecting it, or we'd been led to believe that it was quite an easy day,
right?
And it was 7 hours of like solid uphill trekking through a rainforest, which was pretty nice. Saw a few monkeys and stuff.
Oh wow!
But that was pretty relentless. You know, we were expecting, and at this point, you know, we'd kind of read about the whole thing, but we didn't really know what we were expecting. So
day one, you kind of expect to slowly get into it.
Exactly, and
slammed in 7 hours.
Yeah, and it was pretty relentless. I mean, we were just walking uphill through a forest like for a long time. And then we got to the first campsite. So we were camping, by the way. There's another route where you can take huts.
Right.
They call it the Coca-Cola route. So if you're a bit of a pussy and you don't like camping, then you can go.
Really?
Yeah.
So you went hardcore, but you had 13 porters.
Yeah, exactly. They carried the tents.
Hang on a minute. This is getting better. So they carry the tents for you?
They carry the tents.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they carry everything. I mean, the food, the tents, they carry everything that you need.
That's so cool. And then they set up the tents.
Yeah, so they literally, these guys, they each porter's allowed 25 kg. They're weighed at every station that you stop at to make sure that they're not above this specific weight.
Oh, that's cool.
And they basically run ahead of you with 25 kg on their head.
On their head?
On their head. They, randomly just, you know, the hands are free, but they're carrying 25 kg on their head.
Wow.
And then they go and set up the camp. By the time you get there, you know, you've got nice hot water for washing.
That sounds really hard.
Really?
It's cool.
That sounds. Hey, Drew, we should go there, train a bit. We'll tell them that we've invented backpacks. So that's incredible. So they're ahead of you, getting the camp and everything ready.
Yeah. So every day that you have a camp or you stop for lunch or something, then they're always ahead of you and
awesome.
you know, set up and everything.
Yeah.
Day one was is kind of. Rainforest, like 7 hours. Every day is kind of 6-7 hours.
Right. Non-stop, or how does that work?
More or less non-stop. Usually we'd stop for like an hour for lunch.
Okay. Right.
If it was cold, then it would be, you know, probably half an hour.
Yeah.
But generally they would be very, as I mentioned before, they're keen to feed you a lot.
Yeah.
And they're aware that you could get mountain sickness if you don't eat. So they're pushing the food down you. So they make you stop for lunch and for dinner as well.
Yeah.
So day one is rainforest, and then you emerge from the rainforest and you're into like an open area where it's kind of moorland and scrub.
Right.
Very, very open, so it's pretty windy, pretty cold. At this time you get into like probably about freezing temperatures at night.
Right.
So it's pretty cold in the tent.
And the wind has a big impact.
The wind has a huge impact.
Yeah.
I mean, you just a couples of kilometre an hour of wind, and it makes a huge difference. And also in the sleep quality as well, because the noise that you get from the wind is whipping around the tents, and if there's a couple of nights that we didn't sleep very well, and it makes the next day a lot harder if you've not slept so well.
Yeah.
And already at altitude, it's pretty.
How many
difficult
hours
to
would you sleep at night? How would that
we
work?
would go to sleep at probably around 8 o'clock every night, and we would wake up at 6. But the sleep would be very interrupted. I mean, again, one of the mountain sickness is vivid dreams and very light sleep. So
the vivid dream sounds.
Tell us about that.
Vivid dreams is interesting.
So you're up at 6 and into it by sort of 8 o'clock. Would you start moving that early, mate?
Yeah. 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Right.
You're on the road again.
Yeah.
And then you'd aim to finish kind of 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right. So first day rainforest.
Yeah. Then
harder than you thought.
Harder than we thought.
Baptism.
Yeah. And then actually when we arrived at the first camp, and then we did a acclimatization walk that night. So we did an extra 2 hours that night. So we just went up probably another 200 meters.
Right.
And then back down to sleep, which actually really helps with your acclimatization.
Yeah.
And then from there you move on. You actually then through kind of the same kind of terrain, very open. But you start to get views of the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, and you can see the glaciers, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But it looks so far away. I mean, you
Really?
know, you're not actually walking that far, but it really looks a long way, and you think, there's no way I'm going to reach that in a few days.
Yeah.
Then you're then into kind of like a semi-desert kind of climate. Lots of big boulders, lots of sand. At this point, it starts to get a little bit more difficult because you're walking in almost like gravel.
Right.
So you're kind of treading a lot of the ground away,
Yeah.
which gets pretty tricky. And then on the third day, you actually walk up to a place called Lava Tower, which is a huge tower made from lava.
Yeah.
And that's at 4,600 meters, and then you drop down to 3,900 for the
Already
night.
in
So
3 days, you're already
at 3 days. Yeah, exactly. And but that's the probably the most important day, because you're climbing so high to try and acclimatize, and then you're dropping back down to sleep again. So that's the point where you really start to feel the altitude sickness.
Right.
So as I say, I wasn't on this trip. I wasn't so affected other than headaches, but there were a lot of people at that point who were vomiting, diarrhea. They were in a pretty bad way.
Wow.
The toilets were not so nice.
So there's your group of 3 that have a support staff of the 13, and then there's other groups with you as well, is there?
That's right. Yeah, there's not with us. I mean, everybody kind of camps at the same place, and you see people out on the route.
Right. Okay.
But we were off generally before everybody else.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't see so many people. I mean, the mountain wasn't so busy.
Right.
And we were on the busiest route.
Because, I mean, one of the things that I've read a little bit into Kilimanjaro, sometimes it is an incredibly busy mountain because of what you said before. Like, people maybe underestimate it a little bit. It's still one of the 7 summits. Yeah. It's a high mountain. It's beautiful at the top because of all these things that we've spoken about. And some people say that it's just like people non-stop the way up.
35,000 a year.
Yeah, is that right? Okay.
Right.
I mean, that was one of my that was one of my concerns, that it would just be a busy, and I didn't want that at all. And thankfully, it wasn't like that at all.
Oh wow!
I mean, we would only see, I don't know, maybe 20, 30 people a day on the trek, and then when you get to the camp, there's probably about 100, 150 until you reach base camp, and then there's like 1,000 or 2,000 people. There's a lot of people at base camp.
Yeah,
that can have something to do with that. The season for climbing this mountain is so big. I read something about from March until October you can actually climb that. That's the peak time.
Yeah.
Maybe compared to some other mountains, that's a very long peak time.
Yeah, and apparently September was the biggest or the busiest month, and it wasn't. I mean, I was really, really worried that it would be too busy, but I was pretty happy that it wasn't so busy.
What was the feeling between the three of you, mate? You've got up to sort of 4,500 meters. Few days in, you start to get a little bit tired. Altitude sickness kicks in. You're all related, quite nice, at the start in Zanzibar. But what was the feeling? And I obviously don't want you to tell everyone that you started to hate your wife, but how was the chat between the three of you?
It was fine, actually. Everything was fine until the ascent night.
Right.
And
here we go. Story somewhere.
And then it literally descended into madness. But it
Really?
was. I mean, the girls started to feel a little bit ill, but they weren't. They weren't being sick. They didn't have any real problems. It was just like everybody kind of had a headache, and everyone was getting tired. But the spirits were pretty high.
Right.
And it was all day hiking until the night, and then the night of the ascent is it was a whole different ball game.
Right.
I mean, up until that point, we were all getting on very well. There were no arguments. I mean, there wasn't on the ascent night anyway, but it was it was a totally different ball game, completely. So,
in what regard?
I mean, so on the final day, or the ascent day, you basically walk for 7 hours. You go up a place called Barranco Wall, which is actually the only, not technical, but the more difficult part of the climb, where you need to physically climb on rocks. I mean, the rest of the time you're just trekking, you're just hiking, but this time you're doing a bit of bouldering,
which was new to all of you.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it wasn't particularly difficult. But if you had any kind of mobility issues at all, you'd probably struggle.
Right. So Neil Bryant's in his wheelchair would not be.
We would winch him up.
He'd winch him up. Okay. Neil Bryant's doesn't have a wheelchair. Everyone, he is about 75 though.
Yeah. So you walk for like 7 hours, and then you get to the base camp, which is pretty busy. They've set up the tents. They force you to eat again, and you're now. How high are you? You're like 3,900 or something,
right?
Maybe higher.
This is day 3, right?
This is day 4,
right?
Which is the ascent day. So you basically you arrive at base camp, and then they force you to eat, and then they tell you to go to sleep at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
Base camp's where I mentioned there's like thousands of people there.
Yeah.
It's super noisy. Everybody's excited.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to wake up at 11:30 and then like hike through the night. So the idea is that you get there and you arrive for sunrise at the top at Uhuru Peak.
Right.
So we didn't get any sleep really. I mean,
right.
maybe like half an hour of sleep.
What's the theory behind? Is it so you can be on the peak at sunrise?
Yeah, exactly. Which I wasn't actually that bothered about, to be honest. I mean, I did question the guide a couple of times. I was like, do we have to climb overnight? Because, I'm not so bothered about seeing sunrise. Actually, I'm glad we did, because it was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what everybody does.
Right.
They set off at 11:30. They wake you up. They feed you again.
So there must just be like a mass stampede for the ascent.
That's what you would. Yeah, you would. Again, you would have thought, but there wasn't actually. I don't know if we were off a little bit earlier than everybody else.
Right.
But when we look down the mountain, you can see like a snake of people with their headlamps going up. But I would say probably not more than 250, 300 people walking up at that one point.
Is there just one path, mate? Like from base camp up to the top. There's
I mean, it's a very rough path. I wouldn't even call it a path. And at this point, it's so cold. It was like
really.
I mean, I guess when we set off, it was probably like -5, -10, and by the time we hit the top, like -25. It was super cold. I mean, I was wearing my full ski gear that I wear for skiing in, and I was wearing that twice. So I was wearing like 2 ski jackets. And my hands were freezing. My feet were freezing.
You had 13 porters to take all that stuff for you.
I was carrying my own stuff.
Mate, your 2 ski suits is not 16 kilos plus water. I can work that out. So you set off at 11. Talk us through a little bit of that, mate. They because I think these are more the interest, or some of the really interesting points, and where there's a lot more emotion in it as well. You're there. You've got to base camp.
Yeah.
It's the ascent day.
Yeah.
It's you're going to get there, but you've got to go to sleep at 4. There's all these, and like you said, there's people around you. So talk us through some of the emotions that are going on at the time. I
think you've got kind of a balance between excitement and then nervousness, and we were all quite nervous because it was dark, it was cold, it seemed like a long way. But nothing could actually prepare you for how that ascent actually is. It wasn't how I imagined at all. I mean,
what did you imagine?
I thought it'd be quite easy.
Right.
I just thought it would be, the same as every other day. I just thought, okay, it's a bit of a long walk, and you just do it. But you add the cold. You've got this the mental battle that happens with yourself, where you're constantly questioning, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for the certificate, the photo at the top? What's the actual reason I'm doing this for? And then you've got the altitude sickness.
What
as well.
did you find out? Why? What was your why?
Just to say that I'd done it. I mean, it was, for me, it was
Huge
like
accomplishment.
it's a challenge. That I still think is pretty difficult. I mean, technically it's not difficult, but to battle that is
mentally
is pretty difficult.
If you can overcome things like this, you can probably overcome a lot of other things.
Yeah, I'm really glad we did the challenge. Actually, it was super good. But yeah, I mean, you're also so worried about altitude sickness because that's the one thing that you really can't control.
Yeah.
So we knew that the fitness is not an issue, but if you get sick, then there's every chance that you have to turn around and do it. And apparently, there's only like 60 or 65% of people on this route that we did that actually complete it.
Wow.
Which is actually pretty low, thinking about it.
Very low, yeah.
And yeah, as I say, I was okay. I suffered with headaches, but my wife was hallucinating. At one point, she was trying to brush a parrot off my shoulder.
Really? Did she get it?
Yeah, she got bad altitude sickness,
Yeah.
and her cousin did as
parrot.
well. Oh, the parrot. Yeah, and dead people as well. She was seeing a lot.
Really?
Yeah,
it's
interesting.
I got, when I was doing an Ultra No Man, I got hallucinations. It's very. It's the first time I've had it. I've never taken drugs that make you do that. I don't know if I might start, because it was not. It's a very strange. That's why I'm interested in that part, especially because it's almost like, I think, like you said, with the altitude sickness, you pretty much everything you can control. And I'm a big fan of not worrying about things that you can't control, but when things start happening to your body and your mind that you just literally, like, you get super tired on the air bike, you stop and you've stopped.
Yep.
But when you're getting, I think it's altitude sickness and definitely in hallucinations, stuff's happening that you can't control it.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very, because it's all quite new, and I guess every time you get it, it's different as well. It's a very sort of, I guess, insecure or frightening situation.
I mean, because you, like you say, you can't control it. You don't really understand it.
Yeah.
You don't know what's happening to your body. Like both girls were sick a lot. I mean, they couldn't hold any water down. So of course,
vomiting
constantly.
Wow.
I mean, like every step they would. And the guides were pretty good, because we had a guide and an assistant guide, and they would take whoever was not very well. Someone was being sick, then they would just take them to the side and then let everybody else walk on, because the problem is that temperatures, if you stop, you get demotivated, you get very cold. So they would take the person off who was being sick and let everybody else walk on, and then they would catch up.
Right.
They were very good at balancing that out, but the girls were very sick. A lot of vomiting, and then dehydration. I mean, the next day that they were so dehydrated because they just couldn't keep anything down.
Yeah.
It was like walking with a couple of zombies.
Really?
To the top. Yeah. I mean,
and was that from sort of when you set off about 11:30 all the way up?
No, it was probably about an hour in.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So it was a good like 4 or 5 hours of not great company.
Wow.
But
what
I mean,
was
you look at the
made
photos. They made it, yeah. I mean, you look at the photos and the faces, they're
able to push through.
But they don't look happy about it. There's only me with a smile, actually. But that's, I was lucky that I didn't get it.
Especially because one thing going up, one thing coming down, right?
Yeah.
Was that in your mind, mate? Because you often hear about climbing mountains. It's one thing getting there, but you always have to come down.
Yeah.
Was it in your mind, sort of, the descent as well?
Not at all.
Really?
Not in the slightest. The only thing, I mean, of course, once we actually reached the top, getting down was like, we wanted to get down as fast as possible. That was actually when I found problems, because my knees were shot to bits.
Really?
My knees and my quads were so tired. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, going up was no issue, but I was my knees were really bad on the way down.
What was the last sort of half an hour like pushing towards the top?
Well, actually, there's a place called Stella Point, which is about 45 minutes from the top, which is where they stop, and the guides give you hot tea. So they've got a big flask of sweet black tea, and they gave that to us all. I think we all threw it up. None of us could hold that down. I mean, it was just too sweet, but it was so hot. At this point, my wife's telling me that her hands are boiling hot and to take her gloves off, and she's not really with it. She's out the game.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, she was literally saying my hands are boiling, and they were. I mean, it can't possibly have been.
No,
it was freezing cold.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, we stopped there for maybe a minute, 2 minutes, and then we pushed on. And for me, that was the most exciting part because you're walking amongst the glaciers and the sun's coming up. You know, I really liked that, but the girls were in a bit of a mess by that point. They were really struggling.
How did you get them up that last 45 minutes?
To be fair,
what was your
they were
motivational speech to them? Bearing in mind that they might listen to this. You're really holding me up right now. This is getting boring.
Now, to be fair, they were soldiers. I mean, they at no point did they look like they were actually going to turn around and not
Amazing.
do it. They soldiered on. They didn't actually complain about anything. You know, they just got on with it. So, I mean, it was a big struggle, and as soon as we got to the top, you could tell that they wanted to turn straight round and go. You know, I'm there posing for photos.
Yeah,
There's some guys doing burpees at the top, and
really,
yeah, but they wanted to turn around and go back, but they were fine. I mean, they handled it pretty well. I was impressed.
No weakness.
No weakness at all. No.
What was it like, mate? That last bit, sort of when you I guess you could see the top or feel the top from a little bit out, but the last few minutes going up to the top must have been quite special.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, you're kind of quite peaceful within yourself. You know,
Right.
the sun's coming up. You're surrounded by these beautiful glaciers.
Yeah.
You feel like you're at the top of the
I
world.
thought you were going to say beautiful women as your wife there.
With sickle around her mouth.
Did she listen to this? Never mind.
Yeah, obviously beautiful women as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it's such an accomplishment. I mean, you get to the top and you're like, shit, we made it.
You made it.
It was good. So,
how long do you stay at the top for?
5 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
So
And that's a bit of a bottleneck there. People are like, you know, move out of the way, let me take my photo. So
right, so you just
everybody
sort of
wants that photo.
file through and
Yeah.
You've hit it. What's obviously there's everything you've just done to get up. You've got to do in reverse, and as you were just saying there, your knees were sore, your quads are sore. What's happening in your mind? And obviously, just because you've made it to the top, I guess there's a massive endorphin release, dopamine. You start to feel temporarily better, but you're still at altitude. Yeah, you're still probably not in very good health, shall we say? Yeah, talk us through that a little bit.
I had a really bad headache at the top. So, you know, like you say, you've got that sudden rush of endorphins, and then you start the descent, and we were really tired by that point. I mean, really tired. We hardly slept that night. I mean, we'd been walking throughout the night. We just wanted to get back to the camp and get our head down. But then we were rushing down, actually. That's probably why my knees hurt so much. We were almost running down to try and get back. Managed to get like 2 hours of sleep, but it was so hot by that point. The sun was up. So
how's the body reacting? Like descending that fast, going up. You need to go that slow, but coming down, I mean, I guess you kind of need to go a little bit slower down as well.
Yeah, you should. I mean, I think you should also go pretty slow. But we all felt pretty sick. I mean, we were all really dehydrated as well. I mean, my water froze. I was carrying 2 1-litre water bottles, and a 3-litre Camelback as well, and more or less everything froze, so I kind of ran out of water almost at the top.
Wow.
But then that started to melt on the way down, so I could take more water on, but I was well out of water with probably another hour and a half to walk.
What do they do about that? Because if your water's frozen,
everyone
else is probably
frozen. Yeah, they carry extra bottles in their bag with heat hand warmers against it, so it doesn't freeze.
Oh, right.
So I didn't actually take any of their water, but
just wanted to do it the tough way, or
didn't actually think about it.
Didn't think about it. How was the thinking with everything that's going on, mate? Did you lose a bit of sort of reality or rationality in your thinking? Did you reflecting on it? Yeah,
you don't really. You're not thinking straight at all. I mean, it's
right.
The altitude really plays havoc with your brain. I mean, it really. I mean, that's the one thing that I say to people is when we were doing that ascent, it's almost like the mountain's doing everything possible to mentally stop you from getting to the top. You know, it's throwing out hallucinations, it's making you sick, it's giving you headache. It's you just don't think logically at all. Yeah. So like the thing with the water, I'm out of water. I know that the guide's got water, but I didn't ask for any water. So
that's weird.
Yeah, it's strange.
It's a very strange situation to be in. So you descend. Where do you actually descend to? Where's the first? As Andre was saying, like you went up quite slowly,
Yeah.
but you come back quicker, right?
Yeah, so I mean, it was about 6.5 hours to get to the top from base camp,
Right.
and then probably about 2 hours back to base camp.
Oh wow!
man.
So it was pretty quick.
Sliding down?
Yeah, literally. I mean, we were literally like, it was almost like skiing because it's scree.
Yeah.
Lots of little stones. You can basically slide a lot.
No way.
Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, we
Are
were
you guys
down pretty-
attached to each other?
No.
Okay.
No, we were separate.
So chances of falling and pulling everyone down and
No,
falling off the
they
edge
wouldn't
like you
want
see in
that.
the Everest films
Yeah,
is out. So you go initially back to base camp.
Yeah, back to base camp.
Then what happens?
Get back into the tent, sleep for a couple of hours. At this point, it's hot. You're dehydrated. I
Yeah.
mean, we all felt terrible at this
Yeah,
point. We
yeah.
had such bad headaches.
Yeah.
Just tried to take on more water. At base camp, there's no water source either. So the porters bring 60 kg of 60 liters of water with them,
Yeah.
and then they top it up again. But you're limited with what water you have there.
Right.
So then, a couple of hours sleep. Then they force you to eat again, and then you're back down to the next camp.
And so how far is the next one? So same day. So you
Same day, another like 4 or 5 hours.
So
walking.
literally-
we were shattered.
Yeah, you've been awake. You've been up to the. So I'm just trying
Yeah.
to figure out the timelines. Within about 26 hours,
Yeah.
you've been up to the top,
Yeah.
back down to another camp with
Yeah.
no sleep.
Exactly. So
Wow.
you're totally knackered by
So
that.
it's
time.
5 days up, and how many days down?
2 days down.
2 days down.
Wow,
Yeah.
Man.
wow. So then, did you sleep well?
Very well. That was
Did you?
the only night we slept because we'd been at such a high altitude and then we dropped right down.
Yeah.
We had like, I think we were all so tired. They brought us food. None of us could eat. It was just,
Yeah.
we just sort of left it. It was like
What's the food like, mate? That they
pretty good actually. We
Yeah.
were amazed at how good it was. I mean, it varies between the only day that they don't give you like fresh protein is at base camp.
right.
The rest of the time they'll bring you chicken
Wow.
and they'll do like a stir fry or
Wow.
something like that. Some days it's spaghetti, but it was always pretty good. We were
Yeah.
quite impressed. They even made fresh popcorn up the mountain.
Sounds like your
Like a
holiday.
holiday camp.
I'm sure it's.
So you climbed the mountain, you've come down, you're back home. How does it feel?
Shower. I was
Feels like
I
shower.
was so dirty. I was like, it was so dusty there as well. Like, it's not like camping in the UK where you have nice grass to camp on. It was like thick volcanic dust, and it just gets everywhere. It gets into your
Really?
nails and your hair, if you have hair, in your beard.
in your beard.
Don't know about that.
I mean, we were filthy, and we were just desperate for a shower. So it was really nice to get back. Get a bit of Wi-Fi, have a beer, and have a shower.
Isn't there an option to have your porters to carry a beer up for you?
No alcohol on the mountain.
Really?
Yeah, I
Wow.
know. I remember when we were in Nepal. I remember drinking the whole way around. But in Kilimanjaro, there's no alcohol on the
They
mountain.
must
Wait.
be losing some business in that.
My
Must
dad
be.
was telling me I think he did it about 20 years ago, and he said to him like he wasn't interested because he was interested to get to the top and he didn't want to have altitude sickness and have a beer take him down. But he said on each camp the price of a beer went up by
Yeah.
like $2 or something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know how true that is.
I don't know. No, there was no. I mean, on the route that we took, there was no shops, nothing. You couldn't
Nothing.
buy anything. No.
Wow.
So,
Mate, talk us through a little bit about the stats on it. Like, how do people get involved? Approximately, what did it cost you? What equipment did you need? This kind of stuff. Because, mate, for me, it's massively inspirational what you've done. It's a great story. I think the amount of times that the story that Kilimanjaro has been sort of taken lightly, but no one really gets it. You've really explained it super well. How, if someone's like, I want to get involved in it, how did you, aside from a random phone call, how did you get involved? Who do you organise it through? What do you pay? All of that stuff.
okay. We actually used a friend of ours called Sam Barber, who works for a company called Travel Counsellors,
Right.
and she hooked us up with the whole thing. So she arranged, she sent us through the various options and various routes, and
Yeah.
like with the printed itinerary, which was really good. Told
Yeah.
us how many days you're going for, what you're going to walk on each day, and
Right.
gave us a lot of background. So that was really good to sort of set us going on the right path.
Yeah.
She arranged all the flights and everything as well.
Awesome.
It's 5.5, 6 hours flight from here to Dar es Salaam.
So Dubai, Dar es Salaam. Yep.
We had a couple of days in Zanzibar first, and then went off on the trek. The cost was probably about, I think we paid in pounds because it was in the in the UK, £1,300. So
Right. So just under 10,000 dirhams.
Under
about
10,000
8,000 dirhams.
Yeah, and that's for that included the internal flights, that included all your food, the porters, everything.
Wow. So literally get to Dar es Salaam, and the next 5 days you're all taken care of.
Yeah. So they pick you up from the airport, they take you to the hotel. You spend 2 nights actually in a hotel at the start and at the end.
Right.
So yeah, it's not too bad at all. It was very reasonable. We were expecting to pay a lot more, and the quality of the guides that we got were excellent.
What about equipment-wise? Was there a big? I mean, you said you used ski suits. Was there an investment from your side in equipment?
The only thing I bought was like a camel pack. I bought sleeping bags because I didn't really want to use a used sleeping bag. You can rent everything when you're there.
Okay.
I mean, literally everything. You could turn up empty-handed, and the hotel that we were at had a big storeroom, and they rent all the equipment, so you literally don't need anything.
Yeah.
We took our own sleeping bags, and then we just gave them away to the porters afterwards.
Awesome.
I would take, obviously your own hiking boots was pretty important. Mine were box fresh on the day that we climbed, but I didn't
really recommend that, huh?
No, I wouldn't recommend that. But, a couple of blisters, but nothing too bad. Only on the way down, actually. The way up was fine.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And just cold weather wear, lots of layers.
Yeah.
Get it done.
Get it done. Mate, biggest sort of learning from it, if you could sum up maybe 1 or 2 points?
I think for me it was like on the ascent night, this kind of questioning that came into my head, which doesn't normally happen, like you do. I mean, I've not done so many things like this, but I kept equating it back to the marathon row that I did with you. And when you're on that rower for a certain amount of time and you're just thinking, you're questioning constantly, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? You need to get that out of your head and just say, I'm doing this because it's a good thing. It's a challenge. Get to the top. Stop questioning it.
I heard this cool quote one day from a guy named Julian Pino, who's a strongman. Yeah. And he also talks about all these questions that pop into people's head, and his first recommendation is just burn the questions.
Yeah.
All the question comes up, just burn them.
Yeah.
Forget about them, just like you say you did.
Yeah. But I mean, I think ultimately it was like everybody that I've spoken to. Yeah, I think that's it sounds really cool, and I would really. I'm so glad we did it.
Yeah.
At the time, it didn't feel like that ascent night.
Yeah, of course.
Will stay with me forever. I mean, it was hot, and looking at my wife throwing up every 5 seconds is not so good either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was an amazing challenge, and I'm so glad we did it. So I'd recommend that people do.
Doing it together is amazing as well.
Yeah,
I mean, that must bring something extra.
Yeah, I'm glad actually that there were 3 of us and not just me and my wife, because then I think it's too easy to pull each other down, and we'd probably had arguments. But with the third wheel, it was pretty good.
The third wheel, mate. The future. Inspiration, is it inspired you to do more of the same or different challenges, or where's your head at on that? I know it's quite soon after.
Yeah, it's more about the travelling for me, because I travel a lot with work, which I'm hoping to not do so much. But for me, it's more about getting out and doing different things, and it's maybe not about this, maybe not about doing a trek or doing a specific type of endurance challenge or something. But my wife and I, we mentioned that we were going to do the rickshaw challenge, rally next year, which is basically
in Sri Lanka.
No, in India.
Okay,
there probably is one in Sri Lanka.
I think there is one in Sri Lanka as well. Yeah.
You basically take you take a rickshaw and you go on like a big 3-week trip in this rickshaw. Yeah. So I mean, that sounded pretty like a good time. Yeah, be fun. Pretty dangerous apparently as well.
Yeah, I just was talking to one of the members has just done one in Sri Lanka.
Okay.
I think they did about 8 days. They linked it to a charity. Super cool. You just basically ride in these things the whole day, and maybe we should organise a gym trip over there. That'd be cool. That sounds like a decent
I don't think there's
challenge.
much fitness happening though. I think there's a lot of drinking.
Yeah, that was the only thing I was going to question you. Like, would you run behind and I'd drive it, or? But definitely some motivation to do different challenges, huh?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you do something like this, and you don't need to do them all the time, but just every now and again, it's nice to get involved in something like this. So yeah, I'd like to go back to Nepal, and I'd love to go to Everest Base Camp actually, and give that a shot.
Mate, Moonshine's planning to go to K2 Base Camp next year. So
my father went to K2 Base Camp actually. I saw the photos, and pretty amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, nice. Good. It's definitely a good place to go and take pictures. I don't know. There we go. That's awesome. Kilimanjaro.
That's it. Mate,
very, very, very impressive, and congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
By
Very
the
inspiring.
way, you get a gold certificate when you reach the top.
Really?
Yeah, a green certificate if you reach the stellar point,
Right.
and gold if you make it all the way to the top.
So you framed that and put it up in the
I put it in
bar?
Put it in the bin last night. Actually.
Did you?
Yeah. Got too many certificates and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. This guy. Uber qualified. Who cares? Mate, thank you very much for taking the time to chat to us, and I'm sure that's a lot of inspiration for a lot of people, mate.
Yeah, get it done.
It's a very cool thing. Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Take care, guys.
Awesome
Bye.
work.
Bye.
There we go, mate. What do you reckon, then? Inspired?
Very inspired.
Yeah?
Possibly a challenge I would do myself one day.
What do you reckon, like, it was interesting to hear from Savage about the climbing to the summit and getting to the summit. That would be a special time, huh?
Reaching that day.
Reaching that.
With the sunrise and everything.
Sounds romantic almost.
Sounds pretty
doesn't it?
cool.
But something definitely, maybe we should pick a mountain, huh?
Something higher.
Let's see. Mate, another good show. Got some more good guests coming up and a few more little bits that we're working on as well, but there we go. Second podcast all done for Big Dr. Dre. Easy. Cool, mate. Till next time.
Yep. See ya.
Let's finish up with a massive shout out to our show sponsors, Smith Street Paleo. Remember, hop over to iTunes, give our podcast a rating, leave a comment over there, and we will send you a bag of Smith Street Paleo goodies. Remember, just send us an email, winning@innerfight.com. Let us know you've done that. Until next time, take care.